So Liv asked, okay, so how does everyone maintain structure in their days and weeks when you work for yourself? I also train and compete horses and run a farm, and mostly I feel like a ping pong ball being bounced around by people and life's demands. Please tell me all of your secrets. Chris says, hey Frankie, my knee-jerk reaction is to send proposals. Working my way out of that. Curious if you think proposal is way overkill. I'm just trying to do a good job answering all objections prior to our call. Old habits die hard. What do you think might be the best transition when people ask for a proposal? Dan says for targeting clients for a massage spa, is it better to use broad open targeting or more specific targeting, 15-kilometer range? Welcome back, everybody. Another exciting episode of Agency Goodness where you get to see a man drinking green juice out of a pink cup. I have 2 daughters, so that shit is real. Excited for what you guys are building agency-wise. Like it's you guys are asking better questions and starting to see some big wins. I posted the win in the group, but we just had a wolf pack man or woman that prefers to remain anonymous that just had an 824K week, which just passed their personal high of a 600K week. Obviously, those are not typical results. That does not suck, and there's a lot that can be learned. Perhaps I will do a free training on that at some point about what they did, because it's actually with a teeny tiny little client roster and all that good stuff. Just a couple quick announcements before we get rocking and rolling. The first is that we are filling up for Mexico, but I still have 2 spots available. If you guys are looking for what I think will be one of the coolest times ever, plus you'll actually make some money, make some cool connections, and get to hang with me personally, we are going to a world-famous beach by private boat. It's actually kind of cool because it was one of these beaches that it's like kind of a dirt road to nowhere, and it wasn't super well known like 5-6 years ago, and then they started publishing articles that it was one of the 10 best beaches in the entire world. And it is serene and postcard and beautiful. And now you can't get in super easily. The government only lets like 100 or so people in at a time. They have shifts. They kick everybody out after like 2 hours. There is one exception. If you go by private boat, which is how we are going, no rules. So yay to doing it the money way. So if you guys are interested in that, we're going to do some cool masterminding stuff. I'm going to show you guys, by the way, what we are doing to build passive, automated, recurring income streams. This has been a goal of mine, a mantra I started over 6 years ago. And when I started the mantra, I had exactly 0 passive, automated, recurring income. But now I got some of it, which is exciting. So I want to show you guys how to build that. And then, you know, like I said, we're just going to have some bitchin' awesome time in the beach, in paradise, eating fish tacos, hanging with cool people. So if you guys are interested in that, let me just copy and paste some details for you guys to check out. It's probably not as detailed as it should be, but I will tell you, it's just going to be fucking awesome. And I got 2 spots left. When they are gone, they are gone. So if you guys are interested, do not be left out in the cold. Let's put some deets in the comments. By the way, it looks like it's lagging a little bit on my end, so I never quite know if you guys are even seeing this. Sound is terrible. Okay, maybe I'll have to restart this and cancel this one. Oh, okay, that's Scott just being funny. Okay, sounds terrible. I thought actually you were saying my audio quality is terrible, which happens sometimes, by the way. So anyways, if you guys are interested in that, come hang with us. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Fihn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. Fear the dad guns. Actually, let's start with Scott since he's here first. And I want to talk about something that is a transition. So he says, is anyone out there, let me just copy and paste this in my document. I'm going to mess with our order of things, the holy order of things. Scott says, is anyone out there selling their agency services with video alone, no sales calls? I've got a very easy to explain, straightforward service that is priced nice and low that I'm thinking I may be able to sell with a VSL instead of getting on calls all day. It doesn't require a lot of high emotional selling, and the prospect already knows the price from our ads. Frankie, I feel like this is right up your alley as you're big on loom. Thoughts, ideas. First of all, my dude, that sounds like a slam dunk. And secondly, believe it or not, it is not a price thing. Like a lot of times people have these imaginary price limits where they say to me, oh, my stuff is priced cheap enough that it doesn't need a call. I've actually seen like $1 million stuff sold without sales calls. And more typically, I've seen like $100,000 stuff. I can actually remember the first time I saw it done, I was on a webinar with some guys who did like 3-4 million in the legal space. And I was just facilitating. I was almost like an MC where I introduced the guys and then they go talk. And I remember they sold hundreds of thousands of dollars of shit like at a time right in front of me. No call, no meeting, blah, blah, blah. And so one of the things is there is no upper limit on what can be sold by video. Now, one of the things that's important to understand is a lot of times we don't realize this, but sales calls are a barrier to selling your shit. They really are. I had no idea because a lot of times, like I would do all these sales calls and they were hard and they were difficult. And so I thought, well, if I go to video, like nobody's going to buy it, right? Like I'm struggling with sales calls. And a lot of times, what happens is the opposite. And I'll tell you why, because busy, successful people like to buy shit when they want to buy it. And so what I mean by that is I wrote an example of this the other day in the group, but I had a situation here in Mexico. I took the family glamping a couple of weekends ago. And in Mexico, there's no online bookings. You can't just go to the website and fucking buy it. You got to talk to somebody. And here, WhatsApp is the thing. So you got to send a WhatsApp message. So I messaged 4 glamping retreats. The first one replied in 15 minutes, and they said, yes, we have Saturday and Sunday available. And then they said, here are 16 numbers. And I kind of like politely said, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with these 16 numbers? And they said, oh, bring it to OXXO, which is a convenience store chain here. So I had to drive to, they want me to drive to the store, go get cash, then take that cash over to OXXO, give them these 16 numbers, pay it, have a conversation in my broken Spanish, then take a picture of the receipt, send them the receipt, and then they'll send me an official reply that, hey, like your booking is complete. So that was me. Like in general, like what happens is they're asking money to jump through hoops, which money does not like jumping through hoops. Second person replied 20 minutes later, 5 minutes after the first one, and they said, yep, Saturday and Sunday is available. And they said, we have 3 ways to pay. One of those is PayPal. And I said, it's paid. See you Saturday and Sunday. That was it. The third one replied a day and a half later, said, yes, we have Saturday and Sunday available. I did not reply to them because I had already booked something. And the fourth one just never got back to me at all. Like they just never responded. So money does not like jumping through hoops. And I'll tell you, as a busy, successful person, and this is how busy, successful people buy shit, if they had just had the booking on the website, I wouldn't even have talked to anybody, right? Like, because I was ready to buy the thing. In fact, so this is an important thing to understand. It's actually easier to sell shit through video. It's easier to sell shit through video because people want to buy things and they hate having to jump through hoops. Not only that, but people always ask me, like, what are the conversion rates on video? And they're lower 1-to-1 than sales calls. And they go, oh, well, then that's not as good. But I say, yeah, but 10 times as many people will watch a video. So I convert like 15, 20% of the people who watch the video. And they go, oh, that's lower than my sales calls. I'm doing 60, 70, 80%. Well, that's great. But if you get 10 people on a call and you close 8 of them, and let's say you're a superstar, I can get 100 people to watch a video and I can close 15% of them and 15 of them. So I actually get twice the number of people. So that's my way of saying, like, it can be done. Now, how do you make that transition? I'll tell you the easiest way to make the transition, okay? And that is when you have a calendar booking, usually you have a thank you page. On the thank you page, put the video and say, if you're interested in our service, like blah, 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 like this is what's involved in price and details and all that. And, in your case, you probably got case studies galore and all that. And just show them what it looks like. And what you'll find is those sales calls, instead of being an hour long or 60 minutes or 90 minutes long, sometimes my sales calls would go, you'll find they're 5 minutes long. They go, I saw your thing. I saw your offer. Yeah, basically $600 a month sounds good, or $2K a month, or whatever it is you're pricing. And they'll usually just do it. So that's the best transition I found, is not to go straight from, hey, I've never sold through video, to doing it. Just put it on the thank you page. And what you'll find is, take note of the questions that are still left. Now, what is actually in these videos that causes people to want to buy? I'm sure, like me, Scott, you've done probably a lot of sales calls in your life. I know I've done definitely more than 1,000, probably 2,000, maybe even more than that. I haven't kept a super awesome track, but what I noticed is you would hit these certain milestones in every sales call. So the first milestone, usually in a sales call, I would spend 5-10 minutes just getting in rapport, finding some common ground with those people. You don't need to do that in video because it's not a formal sales situation. They know they can walk away. They know they can pause the video. So you actually don't need any rapport at all. So you can skip that. The next thing I noticed with most of my sales calls is the first 30 to 45 minutes, usually of a sales call, are them just trying to figure out, like, what do you guys even do? And, like, how does that translate to me, right? So they ask it all kinds of different ways, but they're just really wondering, like, what can you guys do? And I found the best way to answer that is in a picture. Just show them, like, you'll get leads like this in your inbox. That's it, right? Like, just a picture of what it looks like when it's finished, when you do your thing, when you wield your magic. In your case, like, because you're working with mortgage people, it'd be like, hey, this person just applied for a loan. They got a 680 credit score. Can you get them refinanced or whatever it is? So the best way to answer that is with a picture. People are way more visual. And so I found if you can answer with a picture, you can have them understand what you do for them in 3 to 5 seconds instead of like 30 to 45 minutes of a call. We're still accomplishing the same thing, but we're doing it in 3 to 5 seconds visually. Then the next thing is if you show them a result or a problem you can solve that in a visual way and they understand it, the next thing they'll think is, like, all high ticket sales begin with curiosity. At this point now they're going, hey, I'm really interested in this, tell me more. But the next thing they always wonder is, will this work for me? And so I like to just spell out in plain English who it works for and who it does not work for. And usually the more binary this can be, the better. So for example, I've got a guy that I consult with who does this in the car detailing space, and he noticed that most of the guys who didn't have a physical brick and mortar location just like tended to cancel a lot and blah blah blah, and they didn't have money to keep his services. And the guys who had been around and actually had a real physical shop worked better. So as the binary condition, hey, no offense to you if you're a mobile detailer, but we found this stuff works really well if you got a real physical shop. Now I just weeded out all the people who would be a pain in the ass anyway and just told them, hey, politely, this is not for you. This is for the people who fit this criteria. So you need to spell out who it works for and who it does not, and you're essentially answering the question, will this work for me in my situation? Because we're selfish creatures. Like, you show me, so like, if I show you, hey, I just made an agency owner, as I mentioned, like $800,000, like, that's cool, you're interested, you probably want to know what they did, but at the same time you wonder, would that work for me? Like, could I do that? And so it helps to say it works really well if you're in this situation, right? So then the next thing they wonder, and this is the piece that's missing from most people's stuff, is they wonder, how does it work? And I call this your 3 to 5 step plan, but you have to show them in 3 to 5 steps how you get them from where they are to the result. And this is just high level, but enough so they can logically understand it. And by the way, this is where all the objections happen. All of them. All of the objections happen in your 3 to 5 step plan. And usually the objections are a variation of, this sounds similar to something I tried before that did not work. Now, in your case, you have a very unique service because you're running YouTube ads in a space where nobody else is running YouTube ads. But for a lot of you other folks, you're going to have to address those things that, well, this is why this is different. Like if you're selling SEO and they've had 4 bad experiences with SEO, you got to spell out why this is different. So that's the next piece in 3 to 5 steps. And you're essentially just answering the question in their mind. How does this work? This is the longest part of the video, by the way. It doesn't need to be long, but it tends to be the longest part because you just show them a picture and you say, this will work for you if you're in this situation. Well, let me show you how it works. You show them in 3 to 5 steps. And then the last piece is you just make the offer and say, this is what it is and blah, blah, blah. And then I typically end those videos with, in very detail, telling them what to do next. So for example, hey, if you're interested in buying that, there is a button below. You can just click out, get started. Usually someone will be in contact with you within a couple hours. Don't freak out if you don't hear from us like immediately the second after you buy. Just means I'm busy, I got kids, whatever. But I will get back to you within a couple hours and we'll let you know what the next steps are to get started. And this will be the first thing that we will work on. So if that's you, click the button below. You'll see this form over here. Just put in your credit card details and on the other side, I will meet you with blank. So that's how you want to do that, is really spell out what it's for. And that's really the transition to video. Show them in picture form what you're going to do for them, spell out who it's for, tell them in 3 to 5 steps how you're going to get them those results, and then make the offer super clear and just tell them how to get it. It sounds overly simple, but you'd be amazed. This is how busy, successful people like to buy shit. And I'll tell you, like, I remember actually there was one lawyer I was working with, and I was charging him, I think, $2,500 a month for Facebook ads. And I remember thinking, does he think this is too much money? We ended up meeting at a live event, and I remember he was talking on the phone, and I could only hear one half of the phone call. But he was like, how much is it? $100,000. Can you just put that on the black Amex Visa? And so I could only hear half of the conversation. But what shocked me the most is not that he spent $100,000. It's that $100,000 didn't even trigger the I need to think about it reflex, right? It was just like, it was such a small amount of money. And here I was stressing like, is $2,500 a month too much? Will they buy $2,500 a month without a sales call and blah, blah, blah? So I promise you, like, busy, successful people just like to buy shit and experiment with it. Put that on your thank you page, try it. And I'd be shocked if people, at least some of them, don't buy it before the sales call. And then what you'll find is, and then what happens is you start removing friction. Instead of the hey, schedule a call, wait 2-3 days into the future before we get to talk. Then we got to sit through an hour and we got to wait till the end. And what happens is, by the way, there is a hidden metric in making money on the internet. And I found it, and it's really, really simple. It's called offers made. So I've seen this where, like, I have friends who have like YouTube channels with big followings or Instagram pages with big followings, and they make zero money from it. Like, I'm talking like people who have 500,000 followers and don't make a single penny from it. But if you look at it, they make zero offers. So it's like the most predictable thing in the world. You make zero offers, you can make zero money. So my question to most people is, when are you going to make more offers? Hey, go watch this video and you can see the offer for yourself right now, or you got to jump on a call with me. We got to wait till the end of the call. And only at the end of the call will I then make the offer. Which scenario is going to allow you to make more offers, right? So it's like, it's one of those things that directly translates to cash collected is video. You can be making offers all day long. And there's a deeper principle, which I will get to in a second. But the idea is, like, I want digital me to be the hardest working person in my company. I want digital me to be the one out there making offers and presenting stuff to people. I don't want real me to be doing that. Real me is like, sometimes a lazy fucker. Sometimes I just like laying in bed for an hour and a half with my kids, right? But digital me still making offers in that time, right? So that's the thing that I would love for you to think about. And there is no magic ceiling on like price of things that can be sold. So I hope that's helpful to you, Scott, as well as anybody else listening to that, because selling through video is pretty life-changing. Like, for real, I just made a little flex today about how my calendar is empty today and tomorrow. I guess I got this, but I do it when I feel like it. And that is all because, like, I'm no longer bogged down in sales. I'm no longer bogged down in meetings, and I'm no longer bogged down in hiring. All of that is done through video, just so you know. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. Liv, this was such an intelligent question. I'm going to tag you and see if I can put the old Liv in here. Let's see if it works. Sometimes tagging people does not work on this. No, it's not having it today. So Liv asked, okay, so how does everyone maintain structure in their days and weeks when you work for yourself? I also train and compete horses and run a farm, and mostly I feel like a ping pong ball being bounced around by people and life's demands. Please tell me all of your secrets. I don't know if these are secrets. I'm just going to share a couple of things that have worked for me personally. I'm not saying this is the be-all, end-all, but it's worked really, really well for us. I'll tell you, these are three principles that when you apply them will dramatically like ease the tension, baby, in the schedule, okay? Thing number one is in the difference between what I wrote about in book number 1, custom and customization. They sound very similar, but they have dramatically different results in your experience. And I explain this really, really simply is one of my mentors said this in the simplest way possible. He said, well, buddy, I like to do things that I can do once and get paid for again and again. And so most people, the way they sell agency services is very custom. They do different work each time they get hired, and nothing will run you ragged more because there's a hidden metric in all this called energy. And it takes a lot of work to fulfill on custom work. Customization is when you are personalizing 5 or 10%. So the example I use is like when McDonald's first scaled, McDonald's sold burgers, and that was it. Like McDonald's today has like 12,000 menu items. When they first started, just burgers. So customization is when somebody comes to you and says, hey, can you add extra cheese on my burger? And you say, sure, no problem. Somebody says, you know what, I don't really like onions. Can you hold the onions? And you say, no problem. Or they say, like, can you double patty me? Sure, I'll double patty you. But you're always making burgers. Customization is when clients come to you and they say, do y'all make Chinese food? And you go, no, but I will. And so you go to the Chinese market and you source all these ingredients. And then the next day somebody says, hey, do you guys make pizza? And so now you got to figure out which pizza oven is the best pizza oven. You got to hire a pizza specialist. You got to order in dough from a special place, and you got to ferment it for 3 days and all that kind of stuff, right? And then somebody says, do you guys do catering? And now you got to figure out like how to get the food and how to transfer it and which coolers to use and all of that. And every single time you do that, like you're figuring out a custom problem. That is the custom is the opposite of do once and get paid twice, again and again and again. So you want to structure your agency services, in my opinion anyway, so that whatever you do one time is set up so that's what you're doing for everybody again and again and again and again and again and again. So you're selling the same thing. So the energy of creating it only happens the first time. The second time, you're just reusing shit over and over and over. And you can tweak those processes. So this will dramatically make a shift in how you experience this, because I found 5 custom clients is more work to manage than 50 customization, right? 50 burgers are easier to crank out than 5 I'll make whatever you want me to make kind of restaurant scenarios. It sounds backwards, but I'm telling you, like, and this took me a lot of years to realize this, and I hope this is helpful to you, Liv, and anyone else listening to this, is clients don't need custom nearly as much as they think. They just want the result of it. They don't give a fuck how long it takes you to make it and build it. So that's the first thing, is you got to structure things so it's customization. So it's do once and get paid again and again. Now, the second piece that's been really, really helpful for at least me and us personally is understanding that I want the hardest working person in our company to be digital me, not real me. In digital me, what I found can be working 24 hours a day. Even by the way, inside of the Wolfpack and some of the things we're working on, like for example, I'm having a couple of talk with a couple of people. I sent them, before we had a talk, I sent them a 40-minute training video of something we did that kind of laid all the framework so that when we do spend a couple of minutes and meet up, we can get straight to the point. There's no time. We don't have to teach. We don't have to talk about it. We can just spend 5-10 minutes. Let's get to work. Let's get busy on the thing, and let's get crack-a-lackin', right? And the way I'm able to do that is because most of the conversation in the briefing happened via digital me, not real me, right? And so this is a thing that I don't think enough people have realized, is how much leverage is available on the internet. And I'll tell you why most people don't do this. Because it takes a lot of front-end work to set up. It's more work up front, but the dividends pay for themselves like years into the future, right? Like me recording a 40-minute training takes longer than just messaging one person. But if I'm dealing with the same topic over and over and over and over and over, which I am, now digital me does all the interfacing and does all the setup, right? So this is how I want you to think about it, where can you put digital me? And I'll tell you where we've put Digital Frankie into our business. Digital Frankie is our best salesperson. Digital Frankie is our meeting person, our meeting substitute. And Digital Frankie is also our hiring HR screening filter. In fact, probably use Google Docs just as much, but like when somebody's interested in working for us, we just give them trial assignments, and I don't like talk to them. I just copy and paste a Google document and say, go do this trial assignment, then I'll pay you. And then I only talk to people who like actually did a good job towards the thing that we want to do. So this has been a huge point of leverage, is now like digital me. And digital me, by the way, my ass can be laying in bed, tired as a motherfucker, do not want to wake up, my kids, and digital me still working. By the way, I hear my kids screaming and then downstairs. That's part of the joy. So that's the second thing, is wherever possible, digital representations. How can you solve problems using digital you? Third thing that has been immensely helpful, obviously, like systems and teams for everything that's left. The more you do customization, where you're doing the same thing essentially over and over, the more you can build teams and stuff that do the heavy lifting. So we got tons of awesome stuff about hiring, but I'll tell you the game breaker for us has been those trial assignments. And then the fourth thing, there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, structure, okay, is how do I structure my time? And I'm not saying this is the answer for everybody, but what I found is there are things that are directly tied to revenue, and I like to spend my time doing those things. So I'll tell you two things that for us like produce revenue directly. One of those is creating content, and one of those is making offers. So I dedicate like blocks of time and I make sure it's uninterrupted so that I have time to make offers and to make content so that we're distributing our message and we're nurturing people and at the same time like actually making offers. So those are probably the four things that have like really, because what you're describing is a term I would call leverage. Like how do you structure your time so that you get real leverage so you can actually have a fucking life? And like you said, not be a ping pong ball bounced around. Well, if you're just doing one thing over and over and over and you're being paid for your burger recipe rather than your ability to create food on demand, and then you have digital you doing most of the heavy lifting, and what's left, you have teams and systems and people, and then on top of that, you're focused on the highest value revenue creating sort of activities. I'm not saying it's all perfect and it's not all rainbows and butterflies all the time, but it allows you to have a massive amount of leverage. I see this where people come to me like I just had a conversation like 10 minutes before this where somebody's between 6 and 8K a month and they're burnt out. And, you know, we have people in our community and stuff that are doing, you know, 200K a month that have it easier than somebody doing 6K, right? Because they have like an insane amount more leverage than people who are like working their nuts off, for lack of a better term. Don't work your nuts off. Don't work your ovaries off, Liv. So I hope that's helpful to you guys because that's what's worked for us. I'm not saying that's the Bible and whatever, but, you know, feel free to swipe and deploy whatever works for you, and I hope that's helpful. Chris says, hey, Frankie, my knee-jerk reaction is to send proposals. Working my way out of that. Curious if you think proposal is way overkill. I'm just trying to do a good job answering all objections prior to our call. Old habits die hard. What do you think might be the best transition when people ask for a proposal? I'll tell you the first thing. So I'll give you like, this is my addict's guide to getting off proposals. And this is somebody who, by the way, I made custom proposals for a long time, and they took me like 45 minutes to an hour to create each one, and I did this for 7 years. So like we're talking proposal junkie, like I don't know, I did a couple of proposals every day for like 7 years. Okay, so like, and often on weekends too, so we're not even like excluding those because I had no boundaries back in those days. So the first thing, and this is an important thing to understand, is most times people do not need proposals, and the way to the litmus test to see if you even should send a proposal is just to ask. And don't send a proposal because it's what you do. Send a proposal if it's what they want. So the first thing I would say is just ask them, okay, so do you need anything else from me, or are you ready to get started? And a lot of times people say, no, I'm ready to get started. Like, I feel good about this. I'm happy with this decision. Let's do it. And then what you'll find is you don't need to send a proposal because they don't want one. In fact, what happens is you can start unselling. People don't realize this, but sometimes the hoops you make people jump through at the point of sale, unsell. So for example, like if somebody comes to me, like often I'll experience this in the Wolfpack where they've watched like 40, 50, 100 videos of me and they're ready to kind of like up level and they come talk to me. And then if I said, hey, go watch my webinar and then schedule a call, and then and even though like webinars and calls are good conversion tools, you actually start unselling somebody who's at the point of sale and is ready to essentially buy it and has a question or two, right? So don't send proposals just because. Find out if they're even needed in the first place. Then the second thing I would say is if they want a proposal, then I would ask them, is there anything in particular you would like to see inside of it? Now, a lot of times they don't really say very calibrated things, but sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I really want to know, like, you know, what are our performance targets? Like, blah, 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 you know, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Cool. I can put the performance targets in there, blah, blah, blah. So that's super clear, right? Like, ask them what they would like to see in it. Now, having said that, third thing is, if you are going to make proposals, is for the most part, everything I wrote in the book about expectations is what they want to see in proposals. What kind of results? What kind of timelines? How much money? How are we going to communicate? And what do you need from me? Like, that's essentially what a proposal is. Here's what the result. Here's how long it's going to take. A lot of times we think it's to list all the deliverables, and they actually don't even really care about that nearly as much as we would think. That's almost always to our benefit, not to theirs. The deliverables actually confuse them more often than not. if anything, I would describe if you're going to include something in 3 to 5 steps, tell them how you're going to get them a result in 3 to 5 steps. Hey, we're going to optimize your website. We're going to optimize your GMB. We're going to publish a bunch of content. We're going to fix your name, address, and phone number. We're going to get you a bunch of reviews. Those 5 things are how we're going to get you ranked for keyword blah, 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 and get a bunch of phone calls related to plumbing or whatever it is you do. And then the last piece of the proposal, and this is one of the things that actually was a game changer for me when I still did proposals, is I would make a 2-minute video summary of the proposal and send that, because I can't tell you the number of times you end up chasing people in proposals, asking them if they even read it, where you're like, hey, just messaging you to see, did you read my proposal? And they say, no, not yet. And then you follow up a week later, just following up. Did you read it? No, I haven't. And then you end up either in this, like, you don't know whether they're going to be yes or no. And like, I don't know about you. I'm totally fine with no, but I want to fucking know, like, yes or no. Like, don't leave me in this maybe limbo for a month. So that happens when you make these long, boring proposals. And instead, what I found is I just started making a 2-minute video summary of, like, here's what we're going to do. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's how long it's going to take. Like a kind of summary of the expectations. People did watch the videos. And I'll tell you one thing that I began to do over time is I dropped the proposal just for the video, summarizing here's what we're going to do together. And I found that actually works way better than actually a formal written, boring ass, kind of hard to read proposal. So I understand old habits die hard. I hope that helps you to transition, to get off of the proposal hit, because most times they don't even want them. So ask them if they even want one. Ask them, like, if there's anything else they need. And then is there anything you want in the proposal? Then summarize it in a video. And if you know what to include, what you'll find is people will say yes more often than not. And you'll have a lot less of those, hey, did you read my proposal kind of questions. So hope that's helpful, my man. We got a triple header here from our man Lachlan, which is like pretty much the coolest name ever. All you guys have a less cool name. And so maybe I should read all 3 of these questions because they have a certain feel and flavor, and then we'll kind of answer them all at once. So question number 1 from Lachlan says, anyone do outreach to revenue share partners? What's your approach when reaching out in your conversation flow? Thinking about approaching people saying, hey, can you guys get a handle on a couple new referrals? Love people's thoughts. That's question number 1. Question number 2 says, has anyone set up joint ventures where they sit in the middle of 2 businesses and structure a deal that produces passive income? Hate that word. Super interested in hearing people's experiences on this. Heard Jay Abrahams talk a little bit about this. Number 3, hey guys, I have done well in setting up deal sources for my agency, and I know I'm setting up some for my clients. I have found it very easy to offer value up front because of my marketing and sales background, because I'm teaching my clients how to do this. It's harder to offer value to potential partners. My client is an accounting firm. My recommendation was to start a podcast and have their partners on as guests because people love talking about themselves, then to build a community of local business experts with free training. What are you guys doing to make this process super simple to build strategic partnerships? I heard Frankie Fihn talk about sending them useful stuff like articles. How do people go about marketing partnerships effectively? Email blasts, direct mail, SMS, and handwritten notes. Okay, so let's start at part 1. Is anyone do outreach to revenue share partners? And the answer is yes. Lots of them. In fact, I actually just built a little, what I call my ghetto ass CRM for our revenue share partners, meaning partners that I am personally reaching out to. And here's the deal, okay? I'll tell you a lot of times people ask me scripts and what do I say and what's the magic line? And I think the internal frame with which you approach somebody is as important, if not more important, than what you actually say. So I want to give you the internal frame. When most people do cold outreach where they are messaging a stranger, there are 2 things they do that make it difficult to break through with strangers. So one of those is if you deduce down the essential message to one thing, it would be buy my shit. Buy my shit. Quick question, buy my shit. And there are varying degrees with how well people do buy my shit. But buy my shit is part of the reason people struggle, because they're trying to get people who have no idea who they are to give them credit cards, essentially, right? And then the other piece that they do, and you can feel this when you're on the receiving end, is it's like mass copy and paste. It's automated. You can tell it's not written to you. It's just some generic copy and paste, impersonal thing. And it's a combination of impersonal plus buy my shit that makes the whole thing difficult. Okay? So the flip side of that is, in order to make like outreach work, like in really simple ways, when you hold the internal frame that either A, I am trying to buy your shit, or I am trying to bring you money, it's a very, very different frame because you show up as a giver, not as a taker. And so the example I give of this is like, we have Facebook Marketplace here, and I buy, not like a ton of shit, but a fair amount of shit, like used secondhand kids' toys and things like that. My kids destroy everything, so it doesn't make sense to buy them new shit because I just end up mad when I bought $100 thing and it's broken 10 minutes after it's home, kind of thing. Those kind of things. So when I message people, which is cold outreach, by the way, when I message people on Facebook Marketplace, I have no struggles about it because I'm the buyer. I'm trying to give you money. And I don't think anybody struggles with cold outreach when you're the buyer. When you're saying, hey, I saw your game for sale. Want to buy it. When can I come pick it up? Right? Like, it's very simple. It's very direct. You don't try and hide your intentions. You're not worried about trying to follow some perfect script. You're not worried about what you're going to say. You're not trying to like come up with some perfect outcome. You're just like, hey, I'm trying to give you something. Is it available? Can I come get it? Right? Like it's very easy because instead of saying buy my shit, you're saying I want to buy your shit. I want to bring you money, right? So you don't need a script to do that. You can do that. Like you could message 100 people on Facebook Marketplace and you would you would say something different to everybody and you would not struggle with any of it. You could cold pitch 100 people and would have zero issues with it. The other thing is, and because you're interested as a buyer for real and you're focused on a very specific thing for like beneficial reasons, like you're selling that fucking game and I want that game for my little boy, every message is personalized. You're not like some copy and paste thing you're sending to everybody. So if you do those two things where you personalize, where you actually talk to them and then you say like, I want to bring you money. So like one of the frames that I sometimes use as a revenue share partner is, I just want you to pay me like an affiliate. Or like, I'm happy to bring you sales and you can just pay me like an affiliate. Or I'm happy to bring you sales and you can just pay me like you would pay a salesperson. Is that cool with you? And almost always like, they're like, yeah, that's cool by me. Right? And so the issue is not always like, the script in the messaging. It's like the internal frame is you feel like you're trying to take something. So if you switch that to like, I'm trying to give you money and bring you deals and bring you money and help you up level, and I'm talking to you, and you in that course right there, the one we're talking about, ABC Mortgage Mastery, I want to help you sell that, and you can just pay me like a salesperson. What do you think? What you'll find is you write better messages, because instead of trying to buy my shit, it's like, I'm trying to bring you money, and it's no risk to you, and I'm writing to you. This is not like some generic thing I'm sending to anybody and everybody. And so if you do that, what I find is like you can outreach. Having said that, I go into more detail on our cold outreach course, which you guys can find on the beyondagencyprofits.com website. But having said that, like outreach, it doesn't need to be super complicated if you're the buyer. When you're the buyer, it's super easy. Like you don't struggle messaging people on Craigslist when you're trying to buy shit. You don't struggle messaging a house or a car if you're interested in buying. It's only when you're trying to sell it that you all of a sudden have to get in your head and think about scripts and blah, blah, blah. If you're just like, I'm trying to bring you shit, like it's super easy. So approach it from that. Now, part 2. Has anyone set up joint ventures where they sit in the middle of two businesses and structure a deal that produces passive income? Hate that word. Super interested in hearing people's experience on this. Heard Jay Abraham talk about this. I do a little bit of this. I wouldn't say I do a ton of it, and I know some people who do a lot of it. Part of it is, and by the way, the Wolfpack man that I just posted the other day that had the 824K week, this is what they did. So the way they did it is the one partner is a big like business doing hundreds of millions of dollars per year, and they had a problem, without getting into too many of the details, where the value of all their clients was going to go down unless they solved this problem. They didn't know what to do because there were some logistical like privacy issues and things like that where they couldn't get access to the information. Well, they had a company that could get past and get away around that. And they simply said, let me take care of all that for you. And they simply then outsourced the work to this person and marked up their thing and were able to collect $824,000 in the deal. So usually when you're doing it, You don't have to hide that you have a fulfillment partner, but you're usually not saying A meet B, give me 10% for talking to each other. I have seen people who do that, but more often than not, it's like a let me take care of this for you. I have a fulfillment partner. I will go deal with this for you. And just so you know, I'm going to mark it up a little bit. Is that okay with you? And they're usually like, yeah, if you can solve my problem, I don't care if you mark it up. Go for it. Just get her done, right? So yes, you can absolutely do that. And obviously, you know, Jay Abraham has talked a ton about that, but super easy deals to put together. But usually it's not a, hey, you guys talk to each other and I want 10% for you talking to each other. It's like, hey, I will take the bull by the horns and go solve this problem for you. And then you're bringing in this partner who's going to actually, like, you know, take care of the issue for them, kind of thing. So I hope that helps. At least that's what I've seen. I never take any of this as gospel. I'm just telling you what works for this crazy guy living in Mexico. And the last part, Lachlan part 3 says, hey guys, I've done well in setting up deal sources for my agency. So here's the deal with going after deal sources. This sounds so goddamn simple, but you would be amazed at how people screw it up. Is go with the flow of what they are already doing. I know that sounds like overly simple, but you'd be amazed at how people do this. So sometimes people will see me connect with a deal source or a shoe store or somebody that has my entire audience, and I'll pitch them, hey, let's do a free training together. And then people go, aha, I'm going to steal his technique. I'm going to do the free training. Well, the free training works really well if that person does a lot of free trainings, because now I don't have to convince them on the idea of doing a free training. So for example, sometimes I will pitch them on the idea of doing a podcast together, especially if they got 100 episodes of a podcast and it's super easy for me to make a podcast. Sometimes I will pitch them on the idea of like, hey, you guys are doing an interview series. Let's do an interview series. So the reason I tell you that is you're probably meeting resistance because you're asking people who don't make a podcast to then make a podcast. Even though it makes logical sense and it would benefit them, you're going against the flow. So I'm going to share something that we did back in the day that was really helpful for us. I hope it would be helpful for you. And we ended up having a client. I never ended up running with this offer like long term, but it was something we tested for a little while. And we helped a client make 50 grand in a weekend, and we just found a process that was working. So the idea came from an injury lawyer friend of mine. Is they would do, the way they would meet other deal sources in their industry is they would just have an old-fashioned networking event. They would say, come to the bar between 6 and 9 o'clock. We're all going to have cocktails, hang out. It'll be a casual networking event, blah, 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 and we get to know each other. And then the secret of how it worked, like what was able to make it work, is who he would invite. So in his case, he was a personal injury lawyer, and he would find all the strategic businesses. So for him, that meant physiotherapists, because they deal with a lot of injured people. That meant auto body shops, because people who get in car accidents go to the auto body shop. That meant chiropractors, because they often see chiropractors. And then sometimes he would invite some random people who just knew a lot of people in the community, like the cell phone store manager and things like that. And so all he would do is he would send a couple of invitations by mail, July 17th from 6 till 9. There's no cost. We're having a network event. You're invited because you're an elite member of the community, and there's some synergy between us. And then he would just do old-fashioned shaking hands, having a beer. And so our job in that process was simply to identify, like to do the research to find the people that were his strategic partners, and to send shit by mail and email and send 5-6 notifications so that they would show up to this actual event. And for that, I think we charged $5K, and the first person we ran it for made $50K because they went in there and they got 7-8 referrals because chiropractors already knew injured people. They already knew people they could work with. So if I was going to do it again, chances are your accountant is just doing old-fashioned in-person stuff. But find out what's working for them now and then go with the flow. Don't try and get them to do something they're not, because what you'll find is they'll fight you on that. Because if you're not doing free trainings and I can try and convince you to do a free training, now I have 2 sales to make. One is that you should do free trainings, and the second is with me, and it's the first sale that's the hard one to make. I have to convince you to do something you're not. So you're trying to convince them to do a podcast if they're not. I wouldn't do that unless they specifically came to you and they said, hey, I want to set up a podcast for this purpose. And then, I would do that. But otherwise, go with the flow, my man. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Find out what they're already doing. Do more of that, and you'll make your life so much easier. Dan says, this is probably going to be the shittiest answer of all the questions this week, Dan. But he says, for targeting clients for a massage spa, is it better to use broad open targeting or more specific targeting, 15-kilometer range? This has just been my experience, Dan. We have a lot of people running those kind of ads, and usually what they do is they have an area, like a radius, and then they leave completely open targeting for local businesses. And then often, if you want to get more sophisticated, sometimes they will use videos and then retarget people who have watched a certain percentage of the video. And if you want to get even more sophisticated than that, this is what we used to do when I ran those kind of ads. Is what happens is those ads will work, but they will like kind of fall off a cliff at some point because it's a small audience, and so everybody will have seen your ad in a week, 2 weeks, whatever, and so it'll get saturated. And so we had 3 offers we would cycle between. So for 2 weeks I would run one offer, then 2 weeks I would run offer 2, then 2 weeks I would run offer 3, and then I would go back to offer 1 and just cycle those. And each time you cycle it, use a new image so it kind of seems new. But that allowed us to basically not have to constantly fuck with Facebook ads. So 2 weeks we run with something, and it's not an exact timeline. Obviously you got to monitor it, but obviously it helps you be closer to whatever set and forget is. But target a broad area if you want to. We have a lot of people who have success with show them a video, retarget the people who watch the video, and then also like I mentioned, cycle between offers, cycle the images, and what you'll find is you can get a lot of mileage out of not having to come up with new shit all the time. Because that to me is the biggest bane of Facebook ads, is that you constantly have to come up with new shit, new hooks, and new angles. But cycling between 3 offers and then going back to the images and the copy, that's at least worked for us historically. So give it a shot. Hope it helps. John says, selling website subscriptions. Does anyone here sell websites on a subscription basis where you build a website but just charge a subscription fee every month for that website? So instead of a one-time fee for the website and then annual hosting contract, just charge a monthly fee for the actual website and the hosting. How do you structure it? John, I got a 2-part answer for you on that. I'm a big believer in this, what you're talking about, because I think this game is all about stacking as much recurring revenue as long into the future as you possibly can. This is what banks do, by the way. Banks and mortgages and anybody who is in financing, they set it up 10-year, 20-year, 30 years where they set up payments for themselves 30 years into the future. Never a bad idea to set up payments for you in the future. So I want to give you 2 tools with which you can do this, and feel free to modify to your own liking, but I'm just going to tell you what has worked historically for us. So thing number 1 is financing. Not selling it as a subscription, hey, you can cancel at any time. And so we actually have sold a few websites like this in the water damage restoration space. So what I do is I sell, or I get 50% of the website up front, and then I accept payment plans for the rest of it. So what happens is the website's usually done 30, 60 days. And then what happens is they still got to make payments to me sometimes for 2 years into the future. And with the 50% financing, I'm able to pay our staff and our team and our costs. In our case, it's a white label partner. Shout out to Lane Hook at the Quantum Agency. But we're able to pay the white label partner to actually build it, keep a little bit for ourselves, and then the payments come in, and there's nothing to do for those payments. Sometimes they'll ask for a little update here and there, but not always. Actually, more often than not, they're not really changing their website that much, and so we just get recurring income into the future. So that's the first way to do it, is finance things that are not normally financed. And I just gave you the terms we do it. Feel free to play with it, that how it benefits you. Second way to do this is to give people assets on a try before you buy kind of basis. So I want to tell you something that I think is game-changing that I think not enough web designers do. And this is, by the way, this is part of the subject of book 2, but it is, most people think of it as, most people bring poor and middle-class values to this business model. And what I want to bring for you guys is wealthy people values. Poor people, basically, by the way, they work for an hourly wage, but not usually a good one, and they're usually just trying to make enough to get by to the weekend. The amount of time they're thinking is usually Friday. They're not thinking 30 years into the future or anything like that. They're just thinking about how can I make enough to pay my rent, go get drunk at the bar. At least that's what I thought about when I was poor. Maybe not every poor person's like that, but I was when I was broke. Then there's the middle class way where you're working for a salary where your goal is to get a good monthly amount and get a mortgage and do those kind of things. Then there is the wealthy way, and the wealthy way is where you want to be paid for assets that you own and control. So I always say, like, the richest guy I know back home in my hometown of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, is an old Italian guy who may be dead because I haven't talked to him in 10 years. But anyways, his name is Franco, and he owns 7 apartment buildings and a golf course. And the reason why he was the wealthiest guy I knew back home is because he owned 7 apartment buildings and a golf course, right? So his income came from his assets. In this case, apartment buildings and a golf course. Now, what people haven't realized in our space is that this applies digitally. You want to be paid for your ownership of digital assets. So an example of this is often, I think of Tarek, who came to me inside of the Wolfpack, and I remember he had a website he had built for a cleaning company. And one of the big pain points of cleaning companies is they get the same kind of phone call again and again, which is people call up and they say, hey, can you give me a quote on this? And then usually those people aren't ready to buy, so they hang up the phone. And so their day gets, the way they perceive it, their day gets interrupted all day long from tire kickers. People who say, I'm interested, but then don't pull the trigger. People say, I'm interested, and then don't pull the trigger. And so they're like, what the hell's up with all these tire kickers? And so he made a little like estimator app on the website, and what happens is the estimator would allow you to put in your like cleaning situation, and it'll give you a quote, like usually accurate within a couple $100. And then what happened is, if you still wanted it, then you could pick up the phone and call. And the cleaning companies love this because they got less overall phone calls, but they were more like buyer intent phone calls where people are like, hey, I'm interested in your $1,500 per month office cleaning package, right? And so like, you know, like way more buyers. And so the first question he asked me is the same question most people ask, which is a middle class question, which is, how can I get more web design clients? In other words, how can I get more people to hire me? How can I get hired more? And my thing is, you now own and control an asset, which is you have this website that like solves one of their biggest problems. It like makes the tire kickers, for the most part, go away. So my question was not, how do you sell more websites? It's like, how do you resell this asset, like your apartment building? How do you rent your apartment building more times? And so we came up with an offer that was, hey, I have this website that'll get rid of all the tire kickers by putting a quote machine on your website. And I would love to just give it to you and show you that you'll get more qualified phone calls from your website. And I will give it to you, install it for free, and you can have it for 90 days or 60 days, sorry, and just try it before you buy it and see if it works for you. I'll install it. I'll put your colors. I'll put your phone number. I'll have it up for you within the hour. And what happens is at the end of 60 days, I will ask you to make a decision. If you decide it's not working for me and we're actually getting like, you know, the phone calls, whatever, I will just install your old website. I will back up your site and restore the backup. So you'll have everything you had before. But if you do like it and you do find like, hey, we are actually getting better phone calls and people are more like buyer intent driven, then you can just pay me $199 a month and keep that website as long as you want. There's no contracts, blah, blah, blah. And what happens is he creates recurring revenue, but the recurring revenue is driven by a digital piece of like real estate that he owns, a digital asset, and not by, hey, I'm going to be your custom web designer. Too many people are asking the question of how do I get hired, and not enough people are asking the question, how do I make more cash flow off of the assets I already own and control? And if you've solved a problem for a client, you own assets. Like you've created assets in that process. So that's my way of saying like you can absolutely sell like websites in as subscriptions long into the future without any web design clients in a way where they're happy by creating a website that solves a problem. And I'll tell you universally, by the way, across industries, a problem is they don't put their pricing on their website, so people call them and are tire kickers. So if you want to take that and run, probably 90% of industries, you could solve that problem by just putting set packages on the site. They'll get better overall phone calls, people who are like actually serious about buying it. And then instead of trying to be the custom web designer and we'll make you a custom website, like we'll give you a website that's already working, swipe and deploy, have it up within an hour, and we will just lease it to you. And what happens is most people don't realize this because most people don't truly understand financing is they'll often pay you like way longer and way more money over financing where it's like a risk-free thing. This is why like car companies sell like just $500 down and $299 a month. Come in for Frankie Fihn's Toyota Thon blow up, right? People don't ask like how long am I going to make payments for and what do I got to do? And the reason they do that is because they make more money off of the Toyota in financing than they do just selling it outright in a single deal, right? So if you sell a website and you're selling a 7-page WordPress website for $1,500 or $2,000, and you sell it for payments of $200, and somebody keeps it for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they're going to pay you $2,500 a year or $2,400 a year for 5 years, right? So you get $12,000 for the same website. And this is a thing one of my mentors, Travis, talks about. If you give most people a choice between $1 today or a dime per month into the future, even though they tell you a dime per month ongoing forever is a better deal, even though they tell you I would pick that, in real life situations, they'll always take the dollar today. Meaning $1,500 for a website right now is better than a $200 lease that's ongoing for 5 years. But in reality, the opposite is true. You get way more money, you get way easier clients, there's no reporting, there's nothing to talk about, there's nothing to sell. It's just like, let me swipe and deploy, I'll set this up, you'll get rid of all the tire kickers. Try it for 60 days, it won't cost you anything. After that, it's $199 a month. And you play with the pricing, I'm just giving an example. But if you do that, what you'll do is you'll set up recurring revenue that is due once and get paid again and again. And the mental shift is going from middle class thinking of how can I get hired. Middle class people are always trying to get hired. I'm going to get a good job. How can I convince the boss man to give me a good paycheck, a good salary? And wealthy people are saying, I own shit. How can I maximize? And to give you an example, how you can own and rent almost anything, even though people don't think this way. There's a company here in Mexico where I live. So this is a common problem, is people have birthday parties and events in quinceañeros, which is like when a person turns 15 years old and they have a big birthday party, and proms and things like that. And they have a lot of families. So often there's like 100 people come to an event. And one of the issues is they don't have enough tables and chairs. And I'm not talking like fancy tables and chairs. I'm talking just like plastic outdoor stacking chairs. And so there are companies here that rent chairs. So what happens is they will bring 100 chairs and they'll rent them to you. And then they take them all home after the event. And for most people, buying 100 chairs for a one-time event doesn't make sense. But the price they rent the chairs for, like 5-6 events, they paid for the chairs. And so they've turned chairs into something that can be rented and leased over time. Now, your digital shit is like a chair that can be rented and leased over time, and not enough people think about it. Everybody's thinking about, how do I get hired? How do I convince somebody to pay me to do some work? Instead of, I got this thing already. Who else could use it that would benefit them, that I can then lease it to them under advantageous terms? And if you do that, you can, instead of asking for $1 today, you can do risk-free, pay me a dime a month for a long time. And what happens is you sell 10 of those people. It's almost like you get a new web design client every month, and there's nothing to do. And it's easier to sell those 10 because you're not asking for anything up front. You're saying, I will give you the result, and you just pay me a dime a month for as long as you want to use my stuff. And I know people think, oh, it can't be that easy. We have Rebecca inside of the Wolfpack, and she has switched her entire agency over to a licensing model. And so I don't know if you guys saw my interview where we talked about this, but the idea is she used to be like everyone else, selling the SEO, selling the pay-per-click. I'll help you make the websites. And what she found is she owns a martial arts studio in San Antonio, Texas. And for logistical reasons, they just didn't want to expand to 30 locations and having to be driving around. And so they decided they wanted to help other martial arts studios to use her stuff. And so what happened is she realized, instead of like trying to get hired and build stuff for people, she would take the stuff that was already working for her and make it in a way where it was easy for them to swipe and deploy in their own business. So like she runs, for example, she runs Facebook ads to a live in-person event where you can like learn some karate moves, and then they have a sales process after it to upsell you into classes. And instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they just give that to people. So here's our Facebook ads that are working. Here's our targeting. Here's how we host the event. Here's our follow-up. Here's our script we use to close people. And they make it so using Go High Level and UpHex that it's just a couple of buttons for people to implement the ads and run them in their own account. But what they do not do is, I'm going to do the work for you. They do, hey, we have these digital assets. We're going to lease them to you. And as long as you're in our program, you can use our stuff. As soon as you leave our program, You don't get them anymore. And the crazy thing to me that she said that was kind of mind blowing is they had clients who were with her for a year. She unfortunately had her dad die, and she took some time off of the business. She took 9 months away from the business, and not one client canceled in 9 months with a licensing model. So a lot of times we think, oh, people won't pay me for my intellectual property and my digital assets. They need me to do the work and blah, blah, blah. I'm here to tell you it's the opposite. They'll actually pay you longer for not doing it, for just leasing them the stuff. And it's really up to you for asking those terms. But it starts with a mental shift of not, hey, I'm trying to get somebody to pay me $3,000 for a website. It's like, I got a thing. It works. I want to give it to you. I will lease it to you under super irresistible terms. And it's a more powerful offer, right? What do you think is more desirable to the client? Hire me and I'll build you a custom website. We'll go back and forth a whole bunch and we'll talk and there'll be revisions and I'll send you this and I'll send you that and we'll have a couple of meetings and eventually you'll get a website you're happy with and gets your seal of approval. Or I have this thing that's already working. It's getting rid of tire kickers, your single biggest problem on the phone. I will give it to you for free and we will have it set up inside of the hour and you do not even have to pay for it until you've tried it for at least 60 days and then you can like turn around and do that. Just for reasons, we have to put your credit card in as a trial. You will not be billed anything today until the next 60 days. What do you think of that, right? It's like almost instant gratification. It'll be up and running in the hour. It solves an immediate problem, blah, blah, blah. Like the thing is already built. There's no back and forth. So that took me a long time to realize it's actually better for the clients. It's better for the clients. Mind-blowing, but still nonetheless a fact. So hope that's helpful to you guys. I'm just going to post again. For those of you guys who missed the intro, I have 2 spots left for Mexico, and then we are sold out, and we are going to have a really fucking awesome time. I'm just going to put Mexico deets in the chat. I don't see any comments from you guys, but sometimes like they don't show up in the live, and then I go see and there were like 10 comments and stuff like that after the fact. But if you guys have any questions, additionally, now would be a good time to ask. But if you're interested in coming with us, check it out. It's honestly like it's one of the best times you'll ever have. We're going to world famous beach. As I mentioned, we're going to have some really good eats. It's amazing, like-minded people. We have a private beach fire. We're going to go to another amazing, beautiful beach where there's literally no one. It's like the whole thing is like a postcard. And then we're going to do some mastermind. We're going to figure out some shit, work on your biggest challenge, stuff that'll actually move the needle for you, thing like that. I don't know why, but my Mexico thing is not... Holy shit, there we go. Now a bunch of comments just suddenly came through. I should make a trip and do some dirt biking. Hell yeah. Scott says, I'll have this up and running by the end of the week. Nice. Frankie, I appreciate the content provided through your affiliate program. I'm interested in learning how to implement the one-to-many methods leveraging this content. So I'll just add on that, Hetty, before we head out. If you're interested in leveraging one-to-many content, it's very, very simple. There's 3 levels of approaching people, okay? And if you can think in these 3 levels, you can approach almost anyone. So first level is what I call coffee date. Like, let's just get to know each other. Second level is first date of like, let's actually work together in a small kind of test each other, feel each other out in a paid kind of capacity. And then the third is marriage. Where most people struggle is they go straight to marriage. So when you're talking about like going after one-to-many people, even though your intentions are to get married to them and their audience and their flow, never start here. In fact, don't even start with a first date. Just start with the idea of what I would call a coffee date. A coffee date is usually like, let's just collaborate on something you're already doing. So like, if I have a partner I'm interested in, that partner has a really awesome podcast, my first pitch is just like, hey dude, I love your podcast because of blah, blah, blah. I saw this guest, blah, blah, blah. I think I'd make a really great interview, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to be on your show. Like, what do you think? And that's it. That's message 1. And then message 2 is like, hey, I had this idea where we could do this thing. Could we start small and just try something? And that's message 2. Like, that's step 2 when we make a first date. And then marriage is like, hey, this went so well. I would like to do this for everybody. Would you be interested in blah, blah, blah? So that's really it. But you have to think about, like, step 1 is co-creating something together. Usually content, but not always. It does not have to be. But content is the easiest way to open the door. Let's collaborate on something together. And then step 2 is like, hey, let's do a small monetary engagement to see how that goes. And then step 3 is let's do a whole lot of this. And if you can follow that, you'll have a lot of success. So wise words. He says I'm Yoda. I'm really not, Paul. Just so you guys know, I feel very confident in this space. in the agency space because I've been at it almost 20 years. Actually, part of the reason, just so you guys know, why I even feel qualified to talk about this shit is because I feel like I've made every mistake in the book. And so, like, and some of them not like just once or twice for a little while. Some of them I made by like 7 years. But there's a lot of things I'm not good at. Like it's a common joke around here, but I'm minus infinity in handyman skills. And I actually remember it was like I had the mother-in-law and father-in-law stay here last year, and they teased me because I don't know how to do anything like a doorknob. Like I got to call somebody like. And then I remember he was teasing me, the father-in-law, like relentlessly because he's really good at that stuff and I'm not. But then I told him like, just so you know, I can hire people like a million of them for $20 an hour to do this, and in that time I can make $1,000 for that hour. Who do you know that can do that? And then he was like, huh. Like I'm like, for me to fix this shit cost me $980 an hour to. So I'm not saying that's a be all end all answer, but I hope that's kind of gives shed some light. I got a lane. I know my lane. I am not. I'm good in this space, but I'm not good in all things. But I think it's helpful to know your lane. And once you guys figure this stuff out, these are lifelong skills that'll just like pay you again and again. Also, I should mention on the Mexico thing, for those of you guys who are interested, there are 2 different ways to get here. For those of you guys who are interested in taking some of those 2 final spots, you can fly to Cabo, which is a big international airport that is 2 hours away. And Cabo has a shuttle that comes right to La Paz. So it's like $30. It's a nice, comfortable ride. I've been on it a few times. They also have private drivers if you want to spend $100. Like if you don't want to go on a shuttle, you can take a car 2 hours and arrange that. I have details on that. But that's way number 1 to get here. And way number 2 is La Paz. You can fly directly to this airport. The only thing is La Paz is a small regional airport. So there are not always as many flights here. So I always price La Paz first, and sometimes you can get here super easy and super cheap. Sometimes you can't, but check it out. And then if that works, come that way. And if it doesn't, come the other way. And like I said, we got 2 spots left. So those of you guys who are interested, check that out. It's going to be like really like we have some heavy hitters coming, I should say too. That's always a cool thing to me. Like when some of the players in our space come hang out in person. So if you guys are interested in hang with us, join with us. I hope we have a good time together. That's all I got for you guys this Monday. Appreciate you guys. Much love. May the force be with y'all. Guys, if you like this video, you're also going to want to grab some free bonuses, which you can get at our website, Beyond Agency Profits. To make it easy for you, I've put the links to it in the description of this video, as well as pinned in the top comment. And we've got a couple of awesome things. This is what you'll get after you sign up. You get some of our best training, how we're closing clients over Loom videos, how we sometimes sign clients that is not a misprint for under $5 US, how to demonstrate your value in like amazing ways, trainings, how to have your clients write the best copy of your life, how we're closing without phone calls, campaigns that we've generated for clients that have done over $100,000, as well as scripts you can use to get conversations going with clients in under 10 minutes. All you got to simply do is go there, enter your name and email address, and then this is what you'll see on the other side. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to click the links below, and I will see you on the other side.